Good afternoon, everyone. The historical record is not really the historical record. What we know is the largest floods ever, always eclipsed if we look further back in time. These last 150 years are nothing. And when we start looking at 360 year, 1,440 year, or 11,500 year cycles, we're connecting December 21st, 2020. The Southeast U.S. megaflood cycle is right on that 1,440 year cycle. Jupiter and Saturn conjuncting the closest in 800 years. And as we take 9-degree steps around the circumference of our circle, the great conjunction, we can map out the eclipses. We can map out the intertwining cycles of time. Now we're mapping out something far larger, a galactic overlapping of cycles, energetically. Not from the elitists on the planet who are riding on top of this natural cycle. As Americans seek economic protection, after the most controversial election in U.S. history, J.P. Morgan Chase is placing billions of dollars for silver to grow more than 100% in 2021. Year to date in 2020 alone, gold is up 30% and silver rising more than 50%. And now we're entering a new year facing economic realities of a global economic crisis caused by COVID and political reactions. Patriot Gold Group has the no fee for life IRA where your IRA or 401k can be in physical gold or physical silver. And you may be eligible for the no fee for life IRA. Give them a call at 1-800-356-4470 and the knowledge that Patriot Gold Group is Consumer Affairs top-rated gold IRA dealer 5 years in a row from 2016 to present. And you work directly with an owner, avoiding absurd fees. To find more information, the link's in the description box below. And now on with the video. And as I was looking for Native American healing and energy spots for the Cherokee in eastern Tennessee, I stumbled across this waterways, how they behave before recorded history, because an enormous amount of the Cherokee sacred spots has been inundated by the Tennessee Valley Authority since the 1930s, literally washed away the entire physical existence. So I started looking at the floods, because the Cherokee stories go back into mega floods that are far larger than today. The largest flood so far, 1867, and this is in the Southeast U.S., but if you're going to do this, you can find your own regional massive floods above what the recorded history is the last 150 or so years. Delve into the stories from the Native Americans around your region. If we go back over the last 10,000 years, what was considered the supermassive, unbelievable mega flood was a mere flood. 3 substantially larger floods in the last 5,000 years, and at least 3 that matched this inundating, all-encompassing, flooding up to the top of mountains floods in the last 2,500 years. So it really does take us going further back in history to find the full cyclicity or the full range of how incredible nature can be. So the area here on the map, and again, you can do this regionally. There's so much information out there, but a lot of things do remain the same. So this is a flood study here with the fluvial deposits in river basins to show you how much floodwater came down and how large the particles were. Larger the flood, the bigger the stones that the floodwaters are going to move. So what they did was look through these different indicators here. If there's a flood, obviously debris is going to collapse and crash into trees. So they look for cellular damage on trees. They also look for what is called alcoves, how much the water had splashed up and eroded into different areas, because a massive flood is going to erode at different rates. They also looked at scarring and slips compared to what the regular low water or regular river is that you see compared to high water. So they have all these different deposits to look at, from the gravel to the erosion to the alcoves, and then also the trees themselves being damaged. Now, a lot of the study has been focused on the North Atlantic subtropical high. And as this moves, it's going to push hurricanes further into the Gulf, and as they spin out, it's going to create more moisture. And it could be all the way through the Texas, Southeast U.S., or wherever it pushes, even in the desert Southwest, based on this North Atlantic subtropical high. And they show you a rendition here of if it pushes further west, it's going to create drier conditions in some areas that would normally become wet. If it's more centered in the Atlantic, the track of hurricanes is going to take a different track. And then they started to try to correlate this and say, all right, maybe this was the cause of the massive floods that they had seen over the last 10,000 years. But the authors themselves, not the sole driver of the fluvial activity in any basin, meaning that the causation of the North Atlantic subtropical high results in an enormous amount of floods from hurricanes, but there has to be something else. But what I found really interesting here is a 1,400-year cycle within the cycle that they referenced here back 10,000 years. The comparison of the different basins. You got the Mississippi Basin, Tennessee, and also the South Atlantic Gulf Coast. So that encompasses pretty much the entire southeast U.S. But the red boxes there are the data they have from the Paleo Hurricane Record. Now, one of those smack dab in the middle of a spike, the other one leading into a spike. But when we're going back that far in time, 2,800 years, I'm in a 50-year window. How much of a variance is that? And then what is the plus or minus times on this? And then as we sit today, moving into the solstice here in 2020, the 360-year little ice age cycle is due, because if we go back to 1640 and we come all the way to today, we're due for another grand solar minimum, bringing in the next little ice age. But at the same time, multiples of those equal a 1,440-year cycle, which also dovetails right into the flood cycle. But on top of that, multiples of the 1440 bring you right up to 11,500. And Douglas Vogt's work with the micronova. A reset is inbound any way you look at it. So if the World Economic Forum wants to ride on top of this natural cycle where there would be so many energetic changes anyway, maybe the news will make more sense to you once you see the coupling and overlapping of cycles, elitist money, and where we're going with our Earth. Grand solar minimum at the minimum, which would be a societal reset anyway. If you look back through history, in these cycles here, about every 400 years going back in time, even going back 4,000 years of 10 of these grand solar minimums, you'll see that society resets itself economically, governmental-wise, the way the structure of government is handled, and the population migration and food pricing all along with this. Fast forward a little bit and couple those together. Not only do we get a massive cycle of Jupiter and Saturn connecting, something so close in the skies that it hasn't been seen since 1226 AD, 800-year cycle, but we're also getting this 1,440-year cycle overlapping in the same exact time. And they talk about specifically dramatic and rapid changes in climate. So perhaps excuses were given in advance why the climate would be changing so much, so you think it's another causation instead of the real causation of cycles in time, not human activity. But if we do start to overlap these cycles, we're due for many of them overlapping right in through 2021. Grand solar minimum, 1440-year, the changing of the elements, and what does that mean really, these great conjunctions? The magnetic coupling affects our sun. That affects our Earth as well. And looking out back in the past, this cycles around the 360 degrees of the zodiacal sign. And look how close Saturn and Jupiter are going to be on the 16th. And as you move forward into the solstice on the 21st, they're almost indiscernible amongst each other. It'll be a great star in the sky. Now, if you were to couple a comet in there for a passing of a week or two, you might have people follow that to a certain location. But we are talking about Saturn and Jupiter, and notice how they're represented here in 1489. Plasma, represented by dragons. Phoenix, represented by rebirth after energetic coupling and changes. Now, to understand this conjunction, it moves 9 degrees every 20 years. So as it transits through the circle of the zodiac, you can see how the triangle moves across. Maybe this is a little bit easier for you to understand. Every 20 years, it traverses 9 more degrees around the circle until it comes back. Incredible synchronicity in how many cycles are overlapping at this very moment. And perhaps some of these earlier renditions from the 1500s and 1400s make more sense when you see the conjunction of electromagnetic activity affecting the human brain and how our weather systems behave on this planet. Things are mappable. This is a diagram here of all the lunar eclipses back 2,000 years prior. The number of days in between the eclipses, that is a mappable cycle, clear for you to see if we do it over time. Fast forward it, de Vries cycle, Gleisberg cycle, Schwab cycles, grand solar minimum cycles, small gears in the back of a Swiss watch, along with the lunar eclipses, solar eclipses, shifting of the elements, bringing us through the last 10,000 years of time over the warmth to the cool. And perhaps the reason the ancients were so focused on how we progress through the precession of the equinoxes, we're entering the first minute of the first degree of Aquarius on top of all these other cycles on December 21st. Thanks for watching. Now you'll understand why I feel we need to get more self-sufficient so quickly. Please join me on Homestead 2030 Patreon /Adapt2030. Hope you got something out of the video, and I'll see you next time. Where are the cycles in your neighborhood?